Cats, what's happening? The weather has taken a turn this fall. Very blustery, cold, rain, heavy at times. There was even some thunder last night. So this morning I'm just sitting here reflecting, and I was remembering back to when I rode with the club, and I thought I'd talk about that this morning. Now, before I get started, I'm not going to identify any particular club or clubs. Uh, just saying that I was a fully patched member. I was very involved in the organization and did almost everything that was required of me to maintain that full patch. Uh, so I had a lot of adventure in that respect. And I didn't say this was an outlaw MC club. I haven't made any kind of, you know, identity to that at all. Let's just say is a club. Okay. It was decided that we were going to go to Washington D.C. for the annual event they have there. It's called Rolling Thunder, and bikers go there from all over the country. And it's basically a time where we honor the military, the fallen, the prisoners of war, the missing in action, the veterans. So it's kind of a neat thing to do. At the same time, it's like a little tour, vacation tour, I guess. So it was pretty fun. But we all met about, it was early in the morning. I'm going to say probably around 6 a.m. And we had to hit the road early because it was a long ride from Ohio to Washington, D.C. Now, as we went on this ride, we had to head east, and of course, we had to cross the Appalachian Mountain Range on the highway. And V was part of that group, although her and I weren't a couple at that time. And as we rode up into the mountains, it became very, very foggy. In fact, it got extremely foggy where it was getting scary, where all you could see was the tail light of the bike in front of you and no further. So obviously, our group of motorcycles, I think there was probably about a dozen of us, a dozen bikes. Some of the bikes had passengers, which V was a passenger on one of the bikes. And because of the conditions being so dangerous, she was a little concerned about who she was riding with, and their skills at riding weren't that honed. So she had asked to ride with another guy who had an Ultra, and she rode with him for a while, and then we had stopped again, and she switched and asked to ride with me, which I was honored, you know. I thought, well, I'm glad she sees that I am a seasoned rider, that I know what I'm doing, and she felt far more comfortable riding with me than with who she started riding with, because it was a very dangerous situation. And so as we rode up through the mountains there, and it got really, really foggy, we were probably, top speed was like 35 miles an hour, but we were afraid to stop in the fog because we didn't want other vehicles to plow into the back of us. So we wanted to just keep moving until we got out of this fog. We were pretty much dressed in, full leather gear, and it got cold. It was probably in the 30s up there, so throw a wind chill in there, and we were about numb. So as we came down and started losing elevation, coming back down the other side, we finally pulled out of the fog. We actually got into some sunshine, and at the bottom of the grade, we pulled into a service station where we could warm up in the sun and get some coffee to warm ourselves up so we can continue on with our ride. But boy, what an adventure. Unfortunately, it went pretty well. Nobody got into any pickles or anything, so that was something I'll never forget. And I believe we arrived there sometime in the evening, right around dusk, when we pulled into the hotel and got our reservation. After that, it was time to get something to eat. We all rode to this finer establishment, which I'm going to say I don't think we were very well accepted there because we had our biker attire on. And this place was a little more uppity, I think. So right away, they kind of snubbed us on the service. They kind of set us way over in a separate area by ourselves, and our service was very slow, very poor. And to make it worse, some of the club members were very outspoken, I think, loud, rude. So that kind of upset the employees as well. So that made our service even worse. And when it came time to settle up, I settled up my bill. I didn't spend a lot of money because it was very high priced. And I think all I got was a hamburger and a glass of water because that was about all I could afford. And so I settled up my bill, but there was some arguing going on with some of the other guys, and they refused to pay their bill because they had crummy service. Although they had got food that they had ordered, and they had eaten the food they had ordered, but now they were refusing to pay for it. Big scene went on. There was loud, obnoxious uh, carrying on, vulgarities exchanged, made a scene in the restaurant, and I actually stepped out because I didn't want to be part of it. That's not me. That's not me. You know, if you go somewhere and you ask for service, it was your choice to go in there. It was your choice to order what you ordered, and you get what you get. And you just have to be happy with that. There's no sense in fighting with the restaurant over that. So that didn't go over well, but see, when you're part of the club, you're involved in that. You're stuck in the middle of it regardless, because everybody is in that brotherhood, so they say. Well, I wasn't very happy with their actions right off the bat. The next day, we toured around D.C., and I was able to pal up with one of the younger guys. Him and I seemed to click pretty well together. We kind of had some things in common, some ideals together, and the same kind of thought process going on there. So we got along pretty well. So we kind of tried to go our own way, I guess. We saw like the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, Arlington Cemetery, the Vietnam Veterans Monument there, which is really neat, and the Wall, which is very moving. If you've never been there, it's quite something to see. There's a lot of things to see there in D.C. actually. Well, we had teamed up with a uh, guy that was a police officer that worked with the federal security there in D.C. And he was able to give us like a personal tour around of D.C. So that was like pretty neat. He took us right into the White House, and we went into the House of Senate, which was having a hearing right at that time. We were able to go up on one of the upper balconies and look down and actually see the Senate in process. And we left there, and he took us over to the House of Congress, which there was nothing going on there, but now that's where there's a podium up at the one end with the flags, and that's where the president comes and gives his speeches. So there was only a couple of us in there, and we were with this guy who had clearance to get us in there and show us, because it wasn't a place that's normally open for public access. And I don't know what inspired me, but I saw the podium there, and I marched right up to the podium and put my hands on the podium like I was going to give some kind of presidential speech. And right away, the security guy came out of nowhere, not the guy that was with us, but somebody else, and said, you know, put your hands where we can see them and step away from the podium. I was like, okay. And they said, do you have any weapons on you or anything? No, I don't. I don't have any weapons on me or anything. Well, step down away from the podium, please. At that same time, security guards were coming out all over the place. There must have been, I don't know, 3 or 4 different security guards that entered that area. And I apologized. They said, well, it is an issue of national security because the president stands at that podium. We just want to make sure that nobody goes up there and plants something, So, okay, I understand that. I guess I'm naive to that kind of stuff. I don't always hang out where the president is, so that was kind of unnerving. We kind of laughed and chuckled about it later. Well, myself and this other fellow, we palled around quite a bit and saw a lot of the sights together, and were able to honor our veterans and those who served, those who never came home. And it was very moving, well worth the trip. We attended some of the ceremonies they had there, which were interesting too. And they also have a parade at that event where thousands of motorcycles parade through Washington D.C. There's a prescribed route that you follow, and it terminates all in one area, and then they have the ceremony after the ride. So that was pretty cool. And then we all returned back home. Part of club life, You do what the club does. You go where the club goes. You follow the rules, and everybody's happy. Eh, at that time, I was beginning to see that maybe this isn't exactly what I signed up for. In my mind, I had envisioned it being a different world than it actually was. So. At any rate, after that particular trip, which was enjoyable, but as time went on, a year or two went by, and there was no more club for me. I won't go into any details. It was not a good scene, but I removed all my patches, my rocker, my boot patch, everything gone, done, and walked away. Moving up to more recent years, I got a phone call from this guy who I was pals with out there. Really cool guy, nice guy, and I really respect and like him a lot. He called me up and he says, "Hey, Itchy, I'd like to take you out to. I'd like to take you to get a cup of coffee and just chit chat, catch up, because we haven't seen each other in years." So I said, "Yeah, I can do that." So he says, "Well, meet me in this particular town. There's a little pub there. I'll meet you there in the morning, say around 10 a.m., and we can have some coffee and just catch up." All right, I'll do it. So I think it was a Sunday morning, actually. So I got on the bike and I rode miles out It was actually out in a rural area, and it was a little small town, and there was a pub there, and so I parked in the gravel parking lot, and right away I recognized more than one motorcycle there. And I thought, boy, that's kind of odd. And as I'm walking in around the corner comes one of these other bikers who I knew, big fella with his wife. And he looked at me like he was kind of surprised. And of course, he was wearing his cut for a club that I had really not been aware of that was around. So I walk into the pub, and there's my buddy sitting there at the head of the table. He just happens to be president of this new club. He started this chapter in that area. And there had to be at least a dozen other guys there, most of them who I recognized, who I knew from previous club life, who had joined him in this new club. And they wanted my membership. I was a little shocked because I went there to have a cup of coffee with him to sit and chit chat, but now that wasn't the case at all. It was actually a club meeting at this pub. Everybody sitting around the table. The meeting was called to order, bam, or church as they call it. And they went through the whole spiel of, reading the minutes to the last meeting and bringing up new business and the whole thing, and dues that were paid or needed to be paid. And then they recognized me as a visitor and offered me membership to the club. Was a very hard choice for me. Well, it wasn't a hard choice. It was a difficult situation for me because I had to walk away. I had to tell them no. I have no interest in joining another club. I would much rather prefer to be independent now. I'm not saying I'm walking away from you guys. I'm more than willing to continue our friendship, but I just can't be part of a club. And they swallowed that pill a little hard because I think they really thought they had me hook, line, and sinker, that I was a shoo-in. But I'm a little more independent, and I was just done with that kind of a thing, so I walked away. Don't need that, didn't want it. And come to find out, that club struggled for probably about a year or so. And then they folded. Now they've reorganized the whole new club. So fortunately they haven't contacted me to join this one, and because I think they know that what my answer would be. So even though I haven't been in a club for a long time, I still have those connections, those guys, those brothers, so they say. And I still have to deal with it from time to time. I don't look over my back. I don't worry about, I don't worry about them. I trust them. I don't think they're going to cause me any trouble whatsoever. I think they have a respect for me. I respect them for what they're doing. I just don't personally take that stand anymore. So that's it for today. Hope you're all doing well, and be sure to hit the like my video. If you haven't yet, subscribe. That way you'll be up to date when new videos come up that I have. I try to post at least 2 videos a week. Right now, given the situation with my wife, she's currently in the hospital. So it's really hard for me to get videos on schedule because my schedule has been just in an uproar right now. Been a very busy man, trying to take care of everything, take care of my wife, and get up to the hospital to visit her. Hopefully she'll be home soon. But in the meantime, share my videos with your friends, and I hope you enjoy them. And I will continue to keep you posted on things. And yeah, you know what I say. Till next time, ride hard, God free.